My name is Deirdre-siobhan. I ran in the Offaly local elections in 2024 and not to get elected, purely to draw attention to important matters. Just before I continue, I want to say that my videos are censored. I had this confirmed by TikTok in Dublin, that they were being controlled by, as the Americans describe as the European superpower of censorship, Commission na Man. Anyone who contradicts the false stories of the state has to be tripped up. This organisation, Commission na Man, was set up unlawfully in 2021 during the false narrative terror campaign when everyone was distracted. Because of this covert censorship, then do not pass any remarks on the stats of my videos. If you do subscribe, Google YouTube may unsubscribe you or switch off the notifications, just so you are aware. Google YouTube may delete comments or shadow ban comments. They have to, as Commission na Man insist on this censorship, and send fines to them if they don't censor. In the last days of July, now into today being Saturday the 1st of August 2026, you will see widely publicised videos presenting to be the invasion of Spain by North Africans. And both in an Irish context, the state's mouthpiece, RTE, has put out this video with the same theme. But also, the so-called alternative media have jumped at the chance at presenting the exact same false narrative and concealing the true story of what is really behind this. To name some of the false alt media would be Gript, Derek Domino, Chris County Gains and Citizen Go. Guess what part of Spain was invaded? No geographical part of Spain was actually invaded. Only Spanish colonies in Africa were invaded. The alleged invaders are on their own continent at the very least. They are running around a place that was originally taken over by the Spanish in their colonial years, but it is still their own continent. The actual invaders in this instant, the Spanish imperialists, took control of North African areas of Ceuta in 1415 and Melilla in 1497. So we are talking here about North Africa and certainly not Spain or the rest of Europe. Not that there is an absence of unlawful invaders into Europe, as there most certainly is. If you are wondering why anyone would have a motive to mislead the public in false stories, then you will have to find this answered by ex-KGB Yuri Bezmenov, a former expert in psychological warfare from the Soviet Union who defected to Canada. He made a well-known video in 1984 on how communists had a method and went through a number of steps to destroy the nation without using any military force whatsoever, and manipulating the perception of the targeted country. Bezmenov outlined 4 stages of the destructive process that criminal politicians use extensively, and that is demoralisation, destabilisation, contriving a crisis, and then normalisation for those who have given up hope and will stay in this controlled state. The reason for these frequent dramas is to agitate, provoke reaction, give a sense of hopelessness, i.e. you are powerless, there is no solution, and then to gain acceptance of the horrid situation where the criminal politicians will heroically present themselves with their solutions to a crisis they cooked up. There is a well-documented military doctrine of wearing people down mentally and emotionally, not just physically. A key part of this was to make people feel unsafe, and that there was no means to remedy this by becoming safe, and then to have a sense of fatalism that you have no control and you are going to be the next victim. As someone who worked as a nurse, there is a well-known phenomenon where people whose attention is drawn upon too much will eventually reach what is known in the healthcare sector as care fatigue. Normally those who have care fatigue have to take time off or change profession, but to ignore this in itself is dangerous. Those behind the news cycle bombardment are fully aware of this, and they are deliberately draining people's attention and compassion to the point of numbness. And this numbness in itself is dangerous, because when there really is a need for natural, empathetic responses, the population will not react as they normally should. The powers that should not be constantly watch your reactions and non-reactions, and one of their measurement systems is Google Trends. If you have a look at the screenshots, and underlined in red are the terms used, Ceuta and Melilla, for Spain, UK and Ireland, showing the Irish people as regards engagement reaction in the issue as flatlined. One of the issues behind this, which is not widely discussed, is to bring about a contrived crisis of the open borders to make people believe that the only solution would be to have biometric digital identification checks, first of all to enter the country for everyone, but then by the flick of a switch it is then to leave the country, and then by the flick of a switch again to go anywhere in your own country. And then finally you can be told that you can't leave the house, as what people were told in 2020 under a different contrived crisis by the same gang behind every major crisis, the true internationalist terror gangs who own the currencies and the banks. But to give people a bit of hope into the true context of what is going on, and a little hint of the solution, just keep in mind all of the aforementioned fake alternative media people will certainly not tell you the following, as it is not in the script they are given. As a background, in 2008, from the rejection of Lisbon I, when Irish people had misgivings of the validity of the EU Lisbon I Treaty, then to be told the decision of the Irish did not count and would have to be run again in a more rigged referendum, Lisbon II. Irish people were promised that they would have a number of legally binding protocol assurances on a number of key issues, for example neutrality, right to life and non-state interference in the family. While obviously all of these promises were unsurprisingly broken by the criminal politicians, in their arrogance they never completed the legal aspect, which was to be ratified with Croatia joining the EU in 2013, which ironically was impossible as the EU ceased to exist after 2009, after being renamed the Union. Therefore, Irish people are most certainly not part of the EU, but could not be part of the so-called new name, the Union, either, as the agreement was never validated. So, when you see all this talk of the non-existent EU and the claimed obligations of the Irish people, the neutrality-busting European army narrative and all the money being siphoned from the Irish people to the EU, and all of the so-called refugee agreements with the EU, it is a very serious, elaborate deception, highly dependent on people not knowing the truth. The criminal politicians and the fake media have ensured that the public are completely unaware of this, and I want you to also know that the Chief State Solicitor and the Attorney General are recorded to be completely aware that they are breaking the law and depend completely on your ignorance, and that you are not annoyed, as you should be, that the state deceived and robbed you and are now putting your life and your family in further danger with unlawful, real foreign invasion. Thank you for your time and attention in this video, and I hope you found the information useful, which I hope you will also verify for yourself. Please subscribe, like, comment and follow me on other platforms, which I list on the description, which I will develop to counter censorship.